Hello, everyone. Welcome to our sixth live podcast. And my name is Sherene. And today we have a very interesting person, and it's an interesting topic that we're going to discuss. That is about mindfulness and how that is going to impact your health and well being. And we have Miss Supriya Puri, and she's a somatic experiencing practitioner. She's an inner child trauma coach and an expert in childhood trauma. So, welcome, Supriya, and thank you so much for participating. So, if you could just start, a lot of my clients, I realize, they come in for weight loss, they come to get fit and strong, but I realized there's a lot of mindset change which is required in order to be strong and fit and to be in that fitness journey. So
Mhm.
that's why I thought it's good to talk about mental health and well-being.
Mhm.
If you could start off by telling what is the relationship between mental health and well-being, Supriya, that'll be nice.
Yeah. Thanks, Shay. Really glad to be here and speaking on this topic. Uh, it's something close to my heart, and I think it's also really important. So, I'm going to begin with just naming and clarifying what we mean by mental health and well being. Now, mental health in itself is a little bit of a misnomer because we are not just our mental health. Our health is both physical, emotional, psychological. But just for semantic purposes, we call it mental health. So we're talking about the contents of our psyche, the thoughts, the feelings, the associations, the beliefs we have. That's what we're calling mental health, along with the impact it has on our body and our mind.
Hmm.
And when we talk about well being is a larger term, right? We look at well being generally as a state of being. So, unlike health, which can be really physical, it can be about the absence of disease. Well-being has is a more broader category.
Right.
Well-being incorporates our physical, our emotional, social connections, our economic health, and how we feel subjectively about all of that in relation to that is what incorporates our well-being, and that's why we call it being well. That's
Okay.
what we mean by well-being. Now,
Mm-hmm.
about the question that you're asking about what is the relationship between mental health and well being, both, I'm going to speak from personal experience and a little bit about how that shows up in my clients as well. So, if we kind of boil it down, Shay, when we're looking at a compromised mental health, we're looking at seeing our access to opportunities, access to experience, access to our full potential of being human, being compromised on a day to day basis. So, even if you look at a very small example, you look at starting your day on the wrong side of the bed, or
Yeah.
you've had a certain kind of argument,
Okay.
or you didn't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
It has a direct impact on the way we're going to feel about ourselves in the day,
That's
right? We're
right.
going to feel probably a little bit more irritable.
Mm.
We're going to be a little bit short tempered, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this can be different for different people, but I'm just taking like a generic example. And that is going to impact the way we're going to approach the day. We're going to feel and look at the world from that lens. So when we go to meet our coworkers or we meet, do our work, we're going to be carrying some of that in our body and our mind, and that's going to compromise our capacity to feel well.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
therefore, mental health has a direct and proportional impact
Mm.
on our well-being, and
Mm.
the other way around. So it's a reciprocal relationship, and that's why we call it a relationship because it's between two
Okay.
elements. So,
Mm-hmm.
how well we feel, the subjective assessment of our well being, how many opportunities I have in the world, how do I feel, how many social connections I have, do I feel I have enough access to good care and nourishment, is going to
Mm.
have an impact on our mental health. So that's how they're reciprocal in a certain way.
Interesting. And people talk about mind-body connection. What is that about?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because we speak about the mind and the body as two separate entities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually, even when you and I will converse, we'll talk about, oh, our mind is feeling a certain, my body is feeling a certain way. But in the landscape that I work, which is somatic psychotherapy, we see the mind and the body as interconnected and interrelated, which means, for example, if people who are watching, or if you want to try this out, if we do a small short experiment and we see what might happen if we, for example, take a certain form in our body and we say a sentence that goes along with it, we can see if there's a connection or a disconnection between the both. So let's try it out. Shay, you can have some fun while we do this. So I'm going to
Right.
invite you to do this with me. So I'm going to invite you to kind of slowly start curling in your spine slightly. Right?
Oh,
That's
like this.
almost like you, yeah,
Okay.
curling in your spine slightly.
Mm. We
And
feel
do
very
that.
small.
Yeah. So just notice how you feel. And then, for example, if you say, oh, I'm feeling very happy, does that land or doesn't land?
No.
It doesn't land. Now
Mm.
you can take like an expanded state. Now we're not attaching any content to this state. We're just taking a
Yeah.
form,
Yeah.
right? And you
Yeah.
take this kind of big shouldered wide stance. Imagine throwing up the hands in the air and looking up at the sky,
Mm.
and then noticing the state that goes along with that. And then if you say, oh, I'm feeling very sad, does that feel resonant or not?
Mm. Probably say it with a smile and no.
Yeah, it won't.
Naturally, you're smiling, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the connection between the body and the mind. The mind informs the body, and the body takes the shape of the story of what's happening in our body in the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So any kind of story that comes along about I'm happy, I'm sad, is totally interconnected with what is the form our body is taking in the moment,
Mm.
and therefore they're completely in connection. They're
So
not separate.
perhaps doing, like, I'm just thinking, when you work out, your posture automatically, it straightens up. You
Yeah,
open up more. So
yeah,
it's again linked, very much linked to, automatically your mind will feel better, right? The
yeah,
minute you
absolutely.
opened up your posture,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah. Your posture, your spine is more elongated. You have full access to your legs, your limbs, and that in and of itself is going to create maybe a small shift, but it's going to create a shift in the way that you feel in the moment while
Mm.
doing anything physical, but also afterwards.
Very nice. And is it supportive of restoring health? Is the next question. Yeah. How can you restore health with mindfulness?
Yeah. I think I just for the uninitiated, because mindfulness has many kind of connotations in our lay language. Mindfulness can be just very briefly, and if we make it a little bit more reductionist, is the way we pay attention to something. So it is almost like a compass. So mindfulness is the ability to pay attention to an experience without placing any meaning or judgment on it.
Oh, wow. Mm.
So mindfulness can be both external, right? So when you are trying something new, you're going to be
Mm.
really aware of that,
Right.
right? You're really going to be in the present moment, right? It's going to be a
Right.
moment to moment experience.
Mm.
And usually in mindfulness, we are able to observe the arising of our experience without putting a negative or a positive connotation on it. So you can just witness it like clouds
Oh,
almost,
so cool.
right?
Wonderful.
So
Mm.
that's mindfulness. And like I was saying, it can be both external. and it can be
Mhm.
eternal. That's what meditative practices are about, is
Yeah.
we're paying attention on the inside to our
Mhm.
sensation, to our emotions, to our breath. Again, being able to have a witness consciousness.
Yeah. I mean, these days people are so busy with their day-to-day, lives that they are all on autopilot, right?
Yep.
The way
Yeah.
people work and constantly judging. Okay, I didn't do this well.
Oh
Did
my
I
God.
do
Yeah.
that well? So it is nice to be in this space of non-judgmental place,
Yeah.
and just, yeah, just
Yeah.
observe, be the
Just
observer, right?
observe. Yeah,
Yeah.
being the observer. And oftentimes, we might think of being mindful and accepting of our experience as a passive activity. Like I'm not responding, I'm not doing anything. But it's actually not passive. It's a way of
Mhm.
paying attention where you observe, but you don't attach any strong significance to any particular aspects that come out in our consciousness.
Mhm.
So that is what we
And how,
mean by acceptance.
right. And how does it help your health in a positive way?
Yeah, of course, now mindfulness is part of psychotherapy. It is part of spiritual, emotional literature, and even practices. And there's a lot of positive health outcome studies,
Mm.
peer reviewed research around the impact of mindfulness on health. Some of the ways that it improves is it shows that people who are practicing for a significant number of years or hours actually have a different cortical or brain structure, where the brain structures that are implicated in self acceptance, in emotional well being, in empathy, in having a positive subjective association with yourself, self esteem, and autonomy. They're
Mm.
all really, really high in meditators or people who've been practicing mindfulness.
Mm.
And also at the level of the brain, that actually shows that there's change in brain activity for people who are mindful,
Okay.
where uh, very small neuroscience kind of jargon.
Mm.
There is a part of our brain which is called the amygdala, which is responsible for moderating our fear responses or emotional processes. And whenever we are stressed out or triggered, that part of our brain kind of lights up.
Right.
And it is shown that people who practice and have a trait of mindfulness over a period of time can
Mm.
actually inhibit the activity of the amygdala and reduce it to come back to a state of emotional presence and awareness. And
Mm.
therefore, all of these things, all of these aspects at the brain level, at the body level, at the psychological level, directly impact our health,
Mm.
because it's also really beneficial in reducing our cortisol levels, which are
Yeah.
basically stress hormones, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, mindfulness has a direct impact on health in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, just when I always try to relate to the clients, like there's a
Yes.
lot of guilt at the end of the day. They miss a session, they feel guilty, and then they give up just like that, or or they've eaten something which is not right. So these things, I'm sure, like mindfulness, like what you're saying, yes, that whatever happened, but then let it go, right? But what I
Yeah.
think people do is they just attach themselves and then they say, this is who I am.
Yeah.
I'm just not disciplined, and then they just like judge themselves. So
Yeah.
yeah, so in this way what you're saying is really good, because people should learn to move on and not attach themselves to that guilty feeling,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it doesn't
Absolutely.
help in
And
progress anyways.
it doesn't, and also it reduces self compassion.
Yeah.
So, mindfulness also increases our capacity to have compassion for ourselves and others.
Yeah, it always starts with us, right? How
Yeah.
can you, yeah, help other person, without having compassion towards yourself first?
Yeah,
That's
so it's a very common phenomenon for us to have this inner critic, this part of us that's constantly kind of chattering away at the back of our consciousness.
mm,
But being able to practice mindfulness in whatever big or small ways shows reduce in that automated negative thoughts, reduction in that rumination, so that we can be in a state of more self acceptance and compassion.
Mm, that's awesome. Um, yeah, we've talked about emotional well-being just now also. Um, then what is a dysregulated nervous system? Can you just explain what that is?
Yeah. Um, like anything, I would like to first just give an like small insight into what is the nervous system, right? We've
Yeah.
heard the term maybe in common parlance, or now a lot of people on social media are using the word nervous system regulation. But what is the
Mm,
nervous system? So if you were to take a very simple analogy, nervous system is like the engine in a car, right?
mm,
It has the capacity to recognize when it has to speed up and provide enough horsepower to the car and the steering to be able to go at a really high speed. And then it also, when the engine is off, the car slows down and it gets a cooling period,
mm,
right? So, akin to this, the nervous system is like the engine of
okay.
our body, the vehicle of our body.
Okay.
And it has two branches,
Mm,
which is called the sympathetic and the parasympathetic,
got it.
right? So, the sympathetic nervous system is that revving system that helps us have energy, pumps blood into our body. Our
Right.
heart helps us engage with active engagement and energy in any field of life. And the parasympathetic is the rest and digest branch of the
Mm,
autonomic nervous system, which helps us to sleep, to
yeah.
rest,
Mm,
to play, right? And of course, there is a blended state, which I don't want to bring in here.
yeah.
There's another state that's recent in discovery, which of
Mm,
course helps us to blend states. For example, when we are playing or when we
mm,
are exercising, we are doing both. We are having
oh,
social engagement. We are,
mm,
really present with each other, but we're also activated. So
yeah.
it's like a blended state, which is
Mm,
really, really good for our system.
right, right. Mm,
So, in short, the nervous system helps us to do things on the automatic. We don't have to think about regulating our heartbeat or blood supply or sleep, or when we have to use
yeah,
the washroom. These are
yeah,
automatic responses, so even
yeah,
sleeping.
yeah.
Now, when we talk about dysregulated nervous system, what that implies is that the natural rhythm of our nervous system, which is like a flow,
Mm,
like if you can imagine a wave, the
mm,
moments that we go activated and will come down, and get
right.
activated and will come down. That's the natural flow, and I can show you with a toy that I have. It's a really interesting. So it's just about expanding and
Oh,
contracting,
right.
expanding, right?
Okay.
You're doing a lot of work, contracting. This is a natural wave or the rhythm of
Mm,
the nervous system. But a dysregulated nervous system is when we go up the wave like a roller coaster and get stuck there,
right. Mm,
or we get stuck in a valley and we can't get out.
okay.
So, a dysregulated nervous system looks like when we're angry or upset,
Okay.
um, rather than being able to move through that experience, we get
Mm,
stuck in that for a very,
oh,
very long time.
okay.
And then our thoughts, feelings, ruminations, ways of being all organize around that stuck experience in our body.
Right,
Right?
right. Mm,
So, and if you look at the other side, if you get stuck in the valley, which is the parasympathetic,
yeah.
now that means that we're stuck in something like a depressive episode. Like we can't pull ourselves out of the bed. Our energy is depleted, exhausted.
Mm, mm,
And that's a function of a dysregulated nervous system, which has experienced chronic stress over a period of time without
mm,
having some form of a settling or a break.
mm, 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 mm,
So, when we're talking about a dysregulation in the nervous system, small dysregulations are completely okay. We're not meant to be in this constantly happy, joyous state all the time. We're supposed to
Right.
be experiencing the roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
But when we get stuck there, what happens physiologically is that it creates a lot of impact on our adrenal glands, which are, really responsible for resting. Um, and people have conditions such as chronic fatigue, which is a function of an overactive adrenal gland.
Right.
Uh, it increases, dysregulation increases our resting state of cortisol in our body. So
Mm-hmm.
that means that rather than coming up and down, it just escalates and stays in our system at a certain vibration frequency, which doesn't allow that cortisol level to come down. So now you can look at conditions like hypertension, diabetes.
Mm.
Uh, you can look at health outcomes like I said, chronic fatigue, autoimmune diseases due to the overactivation of the HPA axis, which regulates the cortical or the cortisol in our body. So that's
Mm.
the impact of a consistently dysregulated nervous system, different from the ebbs and flows we experience every day.
Right.
If it's stuck anywhere, that's a lot of, if we call it a body mind budget, and we have 100%, 99% is going in trying to manage this dysregulation. So we
Right. Right.
won't be available to experience life, do things we want to
Mm.
do, and it's going to really
And
impact our position. Yeah.
most of the time it's from the outside. Is it factors from outside?
It can be both. It
Mm.
can be both because it's like the nurture and nature experience. So, like you mentioned in the beginning, in my introduction, I work with trauma, and childhood trauma is the impact of the experience, not the actual event that's happened, whether that be neglect, abuse. It's the experience that stays in our body.
Right.
Right? So even if the event has gotten over years ago,
Mm.
or the experience has ended, you grow up, you get out and do something else in life, the impact of that in your nervous system is
Mm.
imprinted, and
Wow.
therefore the proclivity of you being dysregulated is much higher irrespective of what's happening in your environment.
Wow. That's
So it's
crazy.
both. Mhm.
Mm. Oh, that's crazy. So, do give suggestions now how we can overcome such, get out of this constant high stress kind of, situations that come up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the beauty about the nervous system is that it can, and even trauma, is that at any given point of time, there is a way to expand and heal that.
Mm.
So there are a lot of different ways, and of course, I'm a proponent of therapy, but therapy is also not the only way that we can do this because not everybody may have access to that. So something as simple as like what we do, being able to exercise and move
Mm.
on a consistent basis, and doesn't matter if it's high intensity exercise, can be exercise of any kind,
Mm.
is going to have an impact on your nervous system in a good way. It's going
Mm.
to release endorphins, which are natural painkillers
Yeah.
in our body.
Yeah.
It's going to release other neurotransmitters, the dopamine and the serotonin. It's going to help the HPA axis. So, any kind of exercise is going to be supportive. The second thing that we can do is engage, like I said, in mindfulness, any kind of mindfulness.
Mm.
Uh, and that could be practices of breath, mindful movement, dancing. All of that is going to naturally support your nervous system to get more regulated and expanded, right?
Mm.
Um, of course, therapy is great, but also social connections. I think since we are social beings, having good connections in community
That's right.
uh, is going to have huge impact. And that doesn't have to be many people, because in the world we live, you're not able to maintain those kind of connections. But
Yeah.
even one person who you can be absolutely open, authentic, be
Mm.
witnessed by, is going to have a beautiful impact on our nervous system, because we are engaging through the face, and that impacts the nervous system, because our face and is innervated through
Mm.
the vagus nerve, which is connected to the nervous system. So social
Mm.
connection, spending
Yeah.
time in nature,
Mm.
huge.
Yeah.
So being able to even, and there are studies that show that there is huge improvement in health outcomes, um, when we're able to spend at least 20 minutes in nature. In fact, there is a branch called forest bathing, Shinrin Yoku, and it originated in Japan, where they did a study where people went into the forest for 20 minutes, and their anxiety, depression, stress levels came significantly down. So,
Very nice. Mm.
spending time in nature is another.
And like the energy, because we are also vibrational beings, right? And
Yeah.
so are the trees and the outdoors.
Oh,
And
yeah.
away from traffic, you just vibrate at a different level. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Being able to just, and something as simple as placing your feet on barefoot on grass, which is
Mm.
called grounding,
Yes.
shifts the electrodes in our body to
Mm.
support more positive ions to flow through. So even barefoot grounding is great.
Mm. Does it completely go away? Whatever you're talking about
I
childhood song, or
Yeah,
it's
no,
you're just controlling it.
I think these are ways of creating more capacity, if I were to name it that way. So if you imagine feeling like this, it creates
Mm.
more capacity in our system. And of course, since childhood trauma has a very deep, imprint on our implicit memory, the part of our body that's not, we don't have episodic memory when you're children. Oh, I was, this age and that age. Before the age of 7, we only have body memory, right?
Right.
We have procedural memory, which means that children and even as adults, we're not going to remember a lot of things that happen in our childhood, but it'll come up when there, for example, there's a trigger.
Right. Right.
You have
Mm.
a disproportionately large response to a seemingly small experience within a relationship, within,
Mm.
co-worker. Somebody didn't text me on time. Why are they
Right.
not texting me? And all of that will start coming up. So what
Mm.
these practices do is create a more spacious nervous system. But if
Mm.
we were to go into these memory imprints in the way
Mm.
that our body encodes emotional learnings, oh,
Mm.
I'm not good enough, people don't like me, we need to do deeper work, which is done through therapy for sure.
Okay. Got it. Got it. So, you mentioned some of the ways incorporating mindfulness
Yeah.
uh, in our daily lives. Um, how can having a more regulated nervous system help in maintaining motivation?
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
So, a regulated, like we explored, a regulated nervous system is a lot more adaptable, right?
Okay.
So, we are not, like I said, we are not supposed to be in a state of constant high energy and motivation. We're going to have ups and downs in life, but that's not going to make us feel stuck.
Right.
We're going to
Right.
have a faster pickup time, if you will.
Uh, okay.
Yeah, you can, there's more adaptability, um, a little bit more flexibility in our nervous system to come back from the difficult experiences we've had.
Right.
So, how it may impact motivation is that even if we've had like a difficult day, or we've had a tiff with a person, we might have an hour or two of feeling this feeling and experiencing this emotion. But next day we'll be up and running back again.
Mm, mm,
because we have a little bit of a larger expanded capacity to be with that emotion. We don't
mm,
have to close down or constrict our body and really distract ourselves to cope with
yeah.
it. We
Mm,
can just be with it and let it take its own shape and form, and yeah, experience the grief or the sadness or whatever comes up. And once it's over, once that flow of that emotional experience goes away, you can come back more dedicated, resilient to whatever else needs to happen in life. So,
mm,
a more regulated system is going to have a direct impact on our state of mind, not necessarily positive, state of mind.
mm,
How much we can engage with the world, how much we can be in a state of compassion with ourselves, like I said earlier in the conversation. And therefore, all of that is going to affect the way we feel about ourselves. We'll have a
mm,
positive self association, a positive narrative about ourselves. Oh, I'm okay, I had a difficult day, but I'm still great.
mm.
And if we were to just even imagine saying this out to ourselves, we would want to do things that would create more capacity and self care and would be caring for ourselves.
Mm. What
That
about
also,
affirmations? All of that. That do you also like recommend that kind of stuff?
I think affirmations in and of itself may not make a big impact
Okay.
because affirmations are words that have to translate into experience.
Right.
For us, for our state needs to shift for us to really
Okay.
feel the difference.
Yeah, otherwise, you're just saying words.
Yeah,
You're
you're
not
saying
feeling
words.
it. You're not
Yeah.
feeling it.
So manifestation works on the principle of making that affirmation, that experience real in your body as if it's
Mm,
experiencing it now.
mm, mm,
And you feel the accompanying emotions that come with it. Like, I am, I'm capable and I am strong
yeah.
and I am lovable, or whatever your affirmation is. You really have to feel the emotional component of that in your body.
Mm,
And that's how shift happens, because any change happens through shift in experience and not just shift in thought.
see. So, like, how can a busy, mom incorporate mindfulness in her day?
Yeah.
What kind of tips can you give?
I think for, I think
Somebody very
one,
busy, not just moms, everyone's just, they start the day and they just go, go, go till the end, right? They don't think
yes.
about eating, nothing. And
Yeah.
no time set for anything else, actually. People are just running all the time.
Yeah.
What,
Yeah.
uh,
So I
what do you,
think if it's possible, thumb rule is that mindfulness has a different timestamp and pace than our regular body, right? Like we experience time differently when we are in a state of awareness. So if you try to do anything a microsecond slower than what you're doing, you can fall into a state of awareness, right? For example, if you're making a cup of coffee, can you do that? Take 5 extra minutes to make that cup of coffee,
mm,
or 2 extra minutes to make that cup of coffee, and really feel the movement of your hand.
mm,
Feel the aroma of
yeah.
the coffee. So anything that you do, if you can take an extra few minutes to do that, having
Mm,
a shower, put folding your clothes,
being in the
anything,
moment.
being in the moment. And if you take that extra moment, that's going to really help support come into a state of awareness. Like we said, it's about shifting our awareness to do something. And that could be,
Mm,
as simple as, oh, I'm just going to hold my cup of whatever, and I'm going to feel the
mm,
texture of that right now. And I'm just going to take a few breaths while I hold this and feel the coolness of this cup
yeah.
and breathe along with it. And
Mm,
that itself will give you a moment of pause and will support your body to come into awareness, mindfulness.
mm,
So that's one really kind of easy, quick way. The other
mm,
is if we're used to doing things on the autopilot,
yeah.
right? So we know which hand is using which toothbrush. We know what is kept where. So another way of incorporating mindfulness is doing anything differently,
Yeah.
learning to do something new. So,
Mm.
for example, if you use the other hand to brush your teeth,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Or, for example, you do your morning routine in a certain sequence.
Mm.
How about you begin a little bit differently?
Okay. Mm. Mm.
And what that'll do is give you a moment of pause because you're not on the automatic. You'll have to slow down and think about
Mm.
doing that.
Mm.
And that, in and of itself, will give you that extra bit of time to be more in the present moment and more aware.
Mm.
Same goes with learning any new skill, if you can manage that.
Mm.
Uh, any new skill that you learn, any new thing that you do is going to induce mindfulness. And of course, there's a caveat to that, but for most part, it can. Singing, humming through the day.
Nice.
So you
Mm.
can use humming as you're doing things. And of course, it'll be so much more helpful if you can just sit in a place and hum for 5 minutes. But if not, as you're moving, just being able to use your breath and humming.
Okay.
Uh, it's going to create more capacity in your system.
Yeah.
Uh, and we notice that that's why when we are singing or we're humming, we take a deeper breath. And
Yeah.
that's the sign our system is opening up. And
Mm.
again, that's another way of both regulating your system and being more mindful.
Very nice.
So
Very
these
nice.
are the ways that I can think of.
Yeah, I myself, I mean, I do meditation like during the day. I just pause for about 20 minutes and
Yeah,
just watch my thoughts.
yeah,
Not exactly my breath, but just watch my thoughts and just let it go, kind of thing. And
yeah.
every time I do that and I come out, I realize I'm more refreshed and
Mm.
your day is more productive. You think you're slowing down, but you're not actually.
Yeah,
You're just more focused when you're coming out of it.
that's true.
You have more energy. So we should not look at it as a waste of time or meditation, that it's slowing you down, but actually
Yeah,
it increases your productivity because you're more focused. You're not thinking about anything else but what you
yeah,
have to do afterwards, because
that's
half the
true.
your thoughts are gone, the
Yeah,
reminiscing thoughts.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. And it's also funny that you mentioned that we feel that, we're wasting time. That's actually our dysregulated brain.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
That's the dysregulation that keeps on creating these high spikes of cortisol in our body, and therefore the thought looping and kind of rumination in our system is due to a high dysregulated system. So actually,
Mm.
you're giving yourself the gift of regulation and safety and breath when you're doing that the practice, and can be 5 minutes, can be 10
Mm.
minutes. That's the
Yeah.
beauty, is begin with what's accessible and easy.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Supriya. I wonder if you have any questions. I'm not seeing anything right now, but I'm sure you will. The audience would find this super interesting, and
Mm,
I hope they do practice this to come
mm.
out of their program.
Yep.
Just how we have been taught every day. What people have been telling about you. All these things are ingrained so much
Yeah.
that people don't realize. They think that's who they are, but
Yeah.
they don't it doesn't have to be like that. It's how you, if you are mindful, you can change the way you're thinking. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the key things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Supriya, for your time, and
Thank you,
yeah,
Shay.
have a great day.
Thank you, Shay. It was a pleasure. Have a good day.
Bye bye.
Bye.